and we come to a parliament and we contained intellectually and academically. We don't come to curse each other. If you want to do that in the branch meeting when you got 6 people up front laughing and carrying on and throwing the caps in the air, well, do that there. Parlement. French. A place of speech. And implied in that, a place of dignified speech. And I meet the honorable member with that answer. That although the American market has improved, the numbers, and I'm going to use the tourism language, the spend may not be proportional to the numbers. But that is for the honorable member for St. Michael West Central. He will go back to his tourism planners and he will commune with them and say to them that the boast made in here yesterday by the honorable member for Christchurch East Central has not been fully explained for the people of this country. And I will remind the honorable member for Christchurch East Central that a restaurateur told me a few days ago, and this is not to disparage the tourists, we welcome them. As I've said before, this place feels different when our tourists are among us. We love people, we love tourists. We love the social intercourse. I say social. And so the honorable member for St. Michael West Central will go back and ask his tourism planners to search deeper within the American market. In other words, find some rich ones. Look, we are tourists too, and we're not rich. And we don't expect to be disparaged when we go to other countries. But, honorable members, please find new markets, not at the expense of the existing market, but find markets that will make this economy prosperous. I quote again, the honorable member for Christchurch East Central said, and I wrote, never in our history have we had 6 hotels under construction simultaneously. Congratulations, hooray. I repeat, never in our history have we had 6 hotels under construction simultaneously. Here's my answer, honorable member, through you, Mr. Speaker. A lot of those hotels under construction are being constructed by foreign labor. What is this doing to the National Insurance Scheme? What is this doing to the prospects for local labor? Because they're being paid less than local labor. And so the local labor is marginalized, he is disenfranchised, and maybe if he's lucky, he can get into Canada. And if he's unlucky, he can always get into crime. This is the dark time, my love. And that is to quote Martin Carter, that is not any statement in personal affection. This is the dark time, my love. I wrote a note here about the downgrades. 19 downgrades. While I complete this sentence, I am going to decide whether I am going to give the truthful response to that criticism of the last government in relation to downgrades. I haven't completed the sentence yet. I'm about to make a decision as to what I should say to this government and the people of Barbados who do not know the secret. I will spare you. You have been so well behaved this afternoon. I will spare you. And I'm not going to tell the people of this country what has been transpiring within the parliamentary group of this great Barbados Labour Party within the last month, 4 weeks. The honourable member for Christchurch East Central looks at me quizzically, and I'm not going to accuse that honourable member of not having an idea about which I speak. I suspect the honourable member knows the truth, but I'm going to spare the government on that one, on the downgrade talk. And that was at page 19. So public, what I could say remains a secret today. I will spare them. I will spare them. They know the truth. I know the truth. Let us keep the truth from our public. And if I hear any bad behavior, they're doing well. Page 20. The level of public debt has declined to slightly above 100% of GDP. Now, Honorable Speaker, sir, I did not criticize line for line, but I moved to page 20, and the honourable member said the level of public debt has declined to slightly above 100% of GDP. Now, unless Rip Van Winkle lives among us, every Barbadian awake knows that this government has been borrowing money at an unprecedented rate. And this government is borrowing money at an unprecedented rate, except that a Minister of Finance, Junior, and other government officials come to the people of this country and tell them that the ratio of debt to gross domestic product is falling. We are increasing our debt every second of every day, of every week, of every month. And this government is coming to the people of this country with this fancy talk. I accused the government earlier of distortion of facts. Honourable member, I'm not the economist that you are. Through you, sir. And maybe you have an answer. And it has never been your style nor content to answer with personal abuse. But I believe you feel it is your duty to give this country an explanation as to what this neophyte in economics just said. I move to page 21 of your presentation, honourable member. And it speaks of a table of borrowings and repayments. I'm no economist, but everybody knows that this government is borrowing money to repay loans. Everybody knows that. But what this government needs to tell the people of Barbados is what about the interest on the monies borrowed? And why are we borrowing? Are we not earning? Because if we were earning, if we were using the monies, the borrowed monies for the projects which we claim is the basis for the loan, we would have boosted our productive sectors, whichever they are. But we hear that these loans, for example, the 25 million was for cricket development. This fella that wanted to play cricket for Barbados, ahead of law and politics, I have not seen a new bat in any of the many clubs, including my beloved Spartan. Bought through that $25 million loan, and a time is coming, Honorable Mr. Speaker, through you, when this Parliament, when this government will have to explain to the Public Accounts Committee, when you let it function, where that Comey loan has gone. The people of Oistins heard that they got $5 million. They heard so. They haven't seen it nor felt it, but they heard so. But when the Public Accounts Committee is allowed to function again, all these things will be brought to light under my humble chairmanship. At page 22 of the honorable member's presentation, he is quoted to have said, the last time the debt level was under 100% was May 2012. We've lost 3 distinguished historians recently. You don't have to be one of them to know which party was in government in 2012. So much for the condemnation, the fatalistic condemnation of the last government. Let us move to page 23. And the honorable member is quoted as having said, commentators are telling the public that the reserves are too high. Honorable member, through you, sir, I say that is not true. Commentators are not telling the government that the foreign reserves are too high. Commentators are saying the debt is too high, not the reserves. The public commentators are saying that the foreign reserves are high because the loans are frequent, that we are borrowing too much, and that we may pass to the great beyond and leave this burden with our children and grandchildren. I hear that every day, honorable member. So please, please, please amend that statement. You are distorting. He is distorting. The honorable member is distorting what the public is in fact saying. But let us come to page 30. Somehow I wrote it this way. 3 words. Building resilience critical. Building resilience critical. And I made a note that this is a bold statement having regard to the disaster that is housing, but I will come to that in some detail. Let me press on. And this one was the most alarming proposal. And I quote, utilization of up to 50% of unclaimed and undistributed assets, including dormant accounts in commercial banks or credit unions. I am seeing the government, but I want the public to hear me. Whether the government hears me or not, if my interpretation is that this government intends to reach into unclaimed accounts, dormant accounts even, of the living and the dead, and say, I want 50% of that. Has this government now declared itself to be a bank robber? Has this government now declared itself to be a bank robber? Is this government proposing to traverse the banking system, look into dormant accounts, unclaimed accounts, have the discussion? Yes, have it, because I want the answer. And say, I want half of that. Apart from which, it is unconstitutional. And the learned Attorney General, among the things that he whispers now, He will give a legal opinion to the honorable member for Christchurch East Central and say to him, the latter, that it is a breach of the constitutional right of the holder of that estate, the holder of that account, whether by estate or personally, that it is probably a breach of that person's constitutional right to hold private property against even the government, which has now transfigured itself by these proposals yesterday into an official bank robber. The government of Barbados is now robbing banks. Beware! Beware, public! Beware! Page 37. Remember, the NIS is your lifeline. And the honorable member paraphrased the commercial that we all hear. The NIS is your lifeline. I'm going to come back to White Oak. Because what I do here today is a continuation of what I started last year. And I will be consistent. And if the NIS is your lifeline, why did this government take the advice of White Oak to write off $1.3 billion belonging to the NIS, and not belonging to the NIS, but belonging to the poor people of Barbados? Why? What's the explanation? Don't talk about lifelines. Don't talk about the NIS as a lifeline when this government allowed two strangers in the pew. That is the best that I can do for them, because Oinatha said he could have done the restructuring for free. But this government gave 27 million US dollars, 54 million Barbados dollars to two strangers in the pew to deprive the INS, the NIS, of $1.3 billion. And the honorable member for Christchurch East Central, good economist that he is, but with a bad report, says that the NIS is a lifeline, and this government conspired to block the lifeline. You know, that's not all that they did, and not they. I am eyeballing this government. And I am saying to this government that this government, deprived by its policy the financial viability of the NIS, and that it allowed two strangers in the pew to persuade this government, this infallible government, to deprive the NIS of $1.3 billion. There is a professor who wrote an article recently in the papers I read. And I make certain confessions. And one of the confessions that I make is that I do not know everything. I am not omniscient. And when this debt swap, claim it swaps, I tell you, this government, I have never seen an assemblage of persons so successful in selling words, sweet words, sweet tasting words, sweet sounding words. You know, when you got to the hawker, you had to buy. Before you tasted the sugar cake, you could smell it. Sweet. When you saw it, it was so pretty. And when you tasted it, you wondered why you took so long. This government is an even better salesperson. Not selling sugar cakes, though. Selling words. Beautiful words, tasty words. Words that smell so good. And so when they came here and talked about climate swaps, perhaps, and this is to be fair, perhaps the honorable member for Christchurch East Central and the honorable member for St. Michael South Central, with their academic background, they must have been in a position to teach the rest of us. But I went and I read, and having read, I still, in my humility, confess that I did not understand everything, and that is why I read the professor. And it was the professor who told this country, this region, that arrangement cost the NIS $400 million. It was not said in here. It was not said in here, but it is written by a professor of the University of the West Indies, our beloved University of the West Indies. None of us in here can challenge her. And all of us must be so poor as to do her reverence. And it was she who made the disclosure that climate swap cost the NIS $400 million. It was not said in this parliament. I did not understand it. I did not. Today I do. Today I do. And I do not because of what I read and understood. I certainly did not understand it as a result of what the honorable member for Christchurch East Central said on the day in question, because I heard sweet words. And those sweet words touched upon my palate. And maybe even I enjoyed it. Until along came that professor, whose name I shall not mention. I like people to keep their anonymity in here. An honorable member, through you, sir, I am willing to share the article with the honorable member for Christchurch East Central, except that I will not share it because good economists read other good economists. And I am confident that the honorable member for Christchurch East Central read the article. I have it here. And if he dares to say, I'm not going to call the name. I'm not. I know you're a good economist, and if you, well, I thought good economists read good economists. And if you dare say that you did not read it, you bring your own reputation into doubt. But I will share it with you in the fullness of time. Let us move to page 55. And I quote, the Prime Minister wants to thank the MPs for St. Peter and St. Lucy for their strong representation on this matter. I think we were hearing about the brown water down there. And I paused. And I wondered, but should not the constituents of St. Peter and St. Lucy be thanking their MPs for strong representation? Is that some kind of an admission that nothing is well done unless the Prime Minister knows or participates? What manner of government is this? Your primary duty is to your constituency, not to the Prime Minister. Yes. Who does not know that? Who does not know that he is called a member of Parliament for Christchurch East? that when the Honorable Speaker calls upon us to speak, he does not say the Prime Minister's pick. The Honorable Speaker says, the Honorable Member for Christchurch East, you may address me. Your primary duty, honorable members, is to your constituent. And when you dare to bring a Republican constitution, the point will be reinforced, except that this country still is to be told what is a Republican constitution. This is a parliament, and when you are in this parliament, you are a member of this parliament. When you are on Bay Street, you are a minister, but you come here as a minister representing your primary duty in this body is to represent your constituency. If you don't know that, I'm going to buy a pipe, put it in it, and hand it to you to smoke it. Page 71. If left unchecked, a minister has a duty to report to Parliament, to give account to Parliament. But the basis of your membership here rests in what your constituents did. They voted for you. So don't thank the Prime Minister. According to the myth of infallibility, according to the myth of supremacy, thank the constituents. For God's sake, thank them. And I know the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central will not do that again, because it discloses much about the state of this government. Page 78. This is the one that really caught my attention. Our mantra, and the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central, you hear what I'm calling him? The Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central was speaking on the issue of crime. And this government now has, according to the Honourable Member, a mantra. Our mantra has been, if you see something, you must say something. Now, what is going on in here? What really is going on in here? And beyond here, what really is going on in this government? What really is going on in a government that has a responsibility to the citizens of this country to safeguard their security against criminal wrongdoing? And how dare this government come to the people of this country and hand them the responsibility in a mantra that says, if you see something, say something. And so the government sheds itself of its responsibility to work not with a peace program, but to work with the police service to ensure that the safety of the citizens of this country is guaranteed. If you see something, say something. So if you see something and you say nothing, the government washes its hands and says, well, you know, we can't get crime solved because somebody saw something and they did not say something. You see the reasoning? You hear the sweet words? You hear the mindset? That this government intends to take responsibility for nothing, including resolving crime. If you see something, say something. And if you see something and don't say something, you then become responsible. I turn to the public. And I say to the public of this country, to reject that. To reject that reasoning. I can say what the public sees. The public sees a police service undermined by the government. And I don't say that because it sounds good. I say that on the basis of some scheme around here in which we are rewarding criminality, in which we are bringing men of dubious character and reputation and record into secret places. And this will be no secret I held your secret earlier, government, but this secret I'm not holding. And the Honorable Attorney General of this country must now tell the people of this country whether some men were getting $8,000 a month to keep the peace. Not holding any more secrets. I held the other one a few minutes ago. Not holding this one. The citizens of this country live under a government that has been in active financial association with criminals. No big words. And the now former minister sat in that place a few days ago and said that sometimes he has a choice between financial assistance and financial empowerment. And he gives the criminals financial empowerment. We heard this in this parliament a few days ago. So a gentleman, and I am going to be unvarnished. A gentleman reports that he is no longer shooting people. And he goes to the minister and says, look, I want some financial assistance. And the minister says, look, hold on. I have looked at you, and my assessment of you is that you should not be getting any financial assistance, but I'm going to give you financial empowerment. And the public of this country is going to ask the question, what's the difference? And the young man goes home and tells his mother, look, they didn't give me the $8,000, but they've empowered me financially. And that is the state, not of play, that is the state of danger in this country. But it has to be a joke. It must be a joke. When, and I repeat, and I am going to put this in the plate of the government on their table every time the opportunity arises, that this government was handing $8,000 a month, to use the Attorney General's language, to gun-toting men. If you see something, say something. That's the government's mantra. A few days ago, I saw something, and I'm saying something now, that this government, under that minister, in that ministry,